While the country witnessed a disaster of unimaginable proportions during the COVID-19 induced lockdown, with over 500,000 young girls estimated to have gotten pregnant, this disaster has not completely dissipated. Ugandans have simply become accustomed to the news of early and forced marriages, child pregnancies, defilement, rape, and other forms of violence against women. The figures produced in national reports still bring much worry. When 127 women and girls are reported to have lost their lives in a single year of 2023 due to aggravated domestic violence, over 14,840 falling victims to sexual-related crimes. 12,881 girls defiled, and over 1,560 women raped in the same year. Somebody was asking, are those national or international? I'm telling you national. And some of these things, me personally, I saw. During COVID, even we had to establish a safe home which is this organized, Uganet. And we were not sleeping, we were fighting, getting women, to the extent that even, there was a Hajji who pregnanted 2 women. Can you imagine the evil, the nonsense that goes on in this country? You know why I felt like laughing? You know, one time when I was asking myself, but God, what is all this? What has gone wrong? Fathers pregnanting daughters, what is this? You know what God reminded me, and I went and picked my Bible. He reminded me that you, these gentlemen, you our colleagues, you actually created immediately after creating animals. So, I think some kind of animalish thing came in the man because and when God saw it, you had nothing for nothing. God saw it, he had to create the woman as a perfect of his creation to help you to be properly human. I'm not abusing you, but when I cry to God, he gives me some answers. You go and read. Can't you really imagine a man pregnant is there with a girl of 5 years, 6 years? Isn't that animalish? I'm not accusing any man, I'm talking about those who do those things. Let me go back to my statement. Now, I want to say that everywhere, because of these statistics which I'm presenting to you, every well-meaning Ugandan must worry and must be concerned. We should worry about the futures that are robbed from these women and girls, about the terror of the survivors, and about the costs, financial, emotional, and psychological, faced by these individuals and their immediate families and the society at large. Needless to say that the numbers above, though scary on their own, they only represent those who are brave enough to report these cases to relevant authorities. Many more possibly go unreported, growing in a huge population of invisible survivors of these erroneous acts. You know, when I look at these things, all this reminds me of my times. Put up your hand, you senior citizens who were with me when we started, when we ran with these struggles. Put up your hand. Some of you are still here. Some of you are still here. Thank you very much. Praise the Lord. I see a member of parliament here. When did you introduce yourself? I have gone out.
No, you weren't here. You were seated there.
Sorry, I want to acknowledge your presence, my dear. At least I know you. Others I don't know them Okay. I wanted to say that these things remind me of at one time in 1990s when I vibrantly led a huge demonstration against gender-based violence and defilement. Yes, and I actually called for castration of all those defilers and rapists. And but yet when I called for that castration, when we went to Parliament, the call was that I should be taken to Butabika because clearly I had become insane. Can you imagine? And I want to tell you, it was a big battle when I said that, because men were so angry, and they were so angry with me. And let me tell you, don't hate me, I speak my mind. So they were so angry with me to the extent that whenever like I would go into a club where men are or Rotary and say, this terrible woman, this evil woman. And you know, I said, why are you fighting? They said, you said we should be castrated. And then to defend myself and win the case, I said, oh, I didn't know all of you had fighters and rapists. Then they say, hey, why? I said, but I said the fighters and rapists. And then they said, okay. And to be sure, from that time, I learned that actually, men, they are potential defilers. They are potential defilers and rapists. And let me tell you, when you know that President Museveni himself asked me, Matembe, how can you say that? And how did you even say it? When I told him how I said it, I said, but look here, Your Excellency. When people, army officers, when they have guns, they are supposed to use them carefully, because those guns are potentially dangerous. Now, if they use them badly, they arrest them and take away the guns. So I said, those men, defilers and rapists, are in possession of potentially dangerous instruments, which should be taken from them if they cannot use them properly. And the president, he laughed and said, Matembe, you stripped men naked. I said, hey, no wonder they were angry with me, because they value that gadget of theirs so much, and yet they demean our gadget, and yet without our gadget they cannot live. So that's why they go and do these development things. Go back to this thing now. And you can imagine, now I would like, they declared me insane to go to Butabika. Now I'm inviting some of you. You become insane like me in the defense of these girls and women. You think if they were castrated, you think they would do it? It would have stopped, I'm telling you. Because men, when they value their gadgets, they have to protect it completely. They wouldn't do this. I think these things should rise again. But I'm glad, Ford, you are still running with this cause. Okay, you all know, I think many of you know the reasons why gender-based violence persists in this country. The reasons are well known. And they include the entrenched gender stereotypes and negative social cultural norms, to continue barriers they are barriers for women, especially in realizing their economic rights. These have been key in limiting women's equal access to factors of production like land, property, and financial services, which in turn shapes outcomes for women in labor markets, entrepreneurship, and innovation. Also, some key weaknesses in our legal and judicial systems limit women's access to justice. This is evidenced by the huge discrepancy between the numbers of reported cases and how many end up in the court system against those that eventually secure convictions or fair and just conclusions to their cases. In the end, these weaknesses and bottlenecks are linked to the level of efforts directed at the elimination of violence against women and girls, especially the level of financing by government. We continue to witness underinvestment in the field of mindset change, yet it's one of the 20 programs of the National Development Plan. The justice, law and order sector also remains largely unresourced to effectively investigate, prosecute, and deliver justice for women and girls that have fallen prey to gender-based violence. Now, in the first report, the previous version of this study highlighted the fact that interventions aimed at addressing violence against women and girls and harmful practices are largely deprioritized and largely depend on external financing. At the national level, violence against women interventions are mainstreamed under gender units within different sectors of MDAs. At the local level governments, these interventions are mainly mainstreamed under the community-based service departments, which indirectly address issues of violence and harmful practices. Since activities are integrated in broader MDA LG's project and program, it is difficult to adequately allocate and ascertain the actual amounts spent on prevention of gender violence. It is just packed into there, and they get all this. That's how they ended up making our Ministry of Gender. Imagine, gender, labor, what, just they dump anything. They just dump it when it comes to men. They do dumping. And for you to pick from the dumping, I'm telling you, you end up not getting anything to deal with the matter. They witnessed inadequate funding for prevention and response interventions for gender-based violence. For instance, the Office of the DPP, the Police Force, the Judiciary, the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development, and others have consistently flagged the issue of funding gaps as inhibiting factors for effective performance. This is confirmed by the findings of this study, which we are going to launch today, showing, for example, that just below 5% of the budgets of the Ministry of Gender and the other, which the study analyzed, MDAs is allocated just below 5% allocated to fight against gender-based violence. Ladies and gentlemen, it is critical that interventions for prevention and response to violence against women be mainstreamed in plans and budgets for peaceful homes and communities. We must take concrete actions, including the establishment of specified budget ceilings and codes to track all resources and expenses for gender-based violence in government work plans. We must, intentionally focus in terms of budgeting, intentionally focus on these issues and matters that will deal with the evil of gender-based violence. A budget targeting code, if introduced, can be used to code national budget lines, votes pertaining to violence against women, as a strategy to track and sustain achievements. There is a need to strengthen the capacities of local governments and MDAs to prioritize these issues in their plans and budgets, and put in the place effective M and E frameworks to monitor allocations and expenditures. There is also a need to put in place a reward and sanction system to motivate performance, especially in achieving gender goals. All these things we are proposing, we have always proposed. But my pain and my challenge, and I speak the truth, that we end up speaking to ourselves. That's what hurts me. I was preparing this speech thinking I'm coming to talk to government who are involved in financing, in budgeting, in all those resources, but we end up speaking to ourselves. Madam Honorable Member of Parliament, it is painful for civil society to struggle and fight and talk and do research and they end nowhere because we only speak to ourselves. If only I had thought they told me the Prime Minister would be here. I was thinking she would hear me. Has she ever heard me give a talk like this? She would hear me and know what I'm talking about, but I don't see her. So I'm only talking to local government, to what. That's what pains us, because when we talk to ourselves and people don't hear what we are saying, who will implement it? We are not the implementers. But we believe in our God, who is supreme. Maybe He will convict them even when they are not here to hear us. In conclusion, my colleagues, I want to say that we need more strategic, sustainable and durable solutions for peace and stability. Government needs to place greater focus on policies that address the structural power and political dynamics that perpetuate discrimination against women and girls and block the achievement of gender equality goals. Emphasis should also be placed on financing the effective implementation of existing legal frameworks by providing adequate resources for mobilization for mindset change. GIROS 2 must support access to justice and improving education, retention and outcomes for girls. Development partners and CEOs through research and advocacy need to strengthen their push for government to comply to policy provisions on protecting women's rights while also supporting awareness and capacity building initiatives for women and communities to rise and defend their own rights. Dear colleagues, let me end by saying this. The major challenge against promotion and realization of gender equality and women empowerment, in my view, is the society's ignorance of the value and importance of women to humanity. For me, I believe that if everybody knew the value and the importance of women to humanity, we would all make sure that we invest in the women and the girls so as to enable them use their God-given wisdom and talents to realize their full potential for their own development, the development of the community and the development of the nation. What hurts me is that I really think if every person knew and appreciated the value of women and the importance of these women to humanity. Without women, where is humanity? I wish everybody could perceive it and understand it the way we struggle to perceive it. God, who created human beings himself, saw and declared that men alone were helpless. He said that. And that means if you had to create that until you created a suitable helper. So until we realize that as long as women are denied the equal opportunities to utilize their talents, to utilize their wisdom, to realize their potential, so that when they realize it, they strengthen, they empower institutions, and these men would lean on us to run with our nation. Until we realize that, I'm telling you, and so be able to give equal opportunities for women to excel, to be effective helpers to men, the helpless men can never on their own develop our nation ahead. My call to all of us is that is to wake up and get to know the value and importance of women to humanity, and help them to break through all these barriers that constrain them, especially the barrier of gender-based violence.